let me introduce to you our second session of the day, which is titled Breathless in Big Cities Towards Net Zero. As you all know, air pollution in India's major cities is a serious and ongoing issue impacting public health, the environment, and overall quality of our life. Some of the key factors contributing to this problem include vehicle emissions, industrial activity, construction dust, which is so close to our houses, particularly in urban cities, waste burning, weather conditions, and of course, population density to a large extent. This session will be chaired by my colleague and senior journalist, Aditi Ananthanarayanan. Aditi, can I please request you to join us on stage? And our speaker for the session is Ms. Anumata Roy Chaudhary, Executive Director, Center for Science and Environment. Ma'am, please, if you could also come up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Ms. Anumata Roy Chaudhary. She leads initiatives on sustainable urbanization, including clean air action, low carbon mobility, and sustainable buildings. Notably, she has also advanced the Right to Clean Air campaign, improving vehicle emissions standards, and promoting natural gas in public transport in Delhi. Aditi, over to you for the session.
Thank you very much, Preeti, and thank you very much, Ms. Anumata Roy Chaudhary, for joining us today. I think the topic for today is something that I think resonates with everybody sitting in this hall, breathlessness in big cities. Ma'am, my first question to you will be as simple as that. With the right to breathe free air, clean air, have an environment which is not polluted. In today's generation, when we're looking at rapid urbanization, because we all want to live in an urbanized environment, we want to have access of everything which is new age tech. Is it possible to breathe free and clean air along with rapid urbanization? It's quite contrary to each other, but is it possible?
I would say yes. And for the reason for my optimism is that while we are all have this doomsday, that the saying that's going on, that, oh, what's going to happen with the kind of smog, the toxic air that we are breathing, and all happening because the way we are growing economically, the way the urban centers are growing, economic activities, concentrated economic activities, all of that contributing, and with economic growth is only going to increase. But I think the time has come now that when you talk about a clean air target or a net zero vision, okay, because we no longer want to keep the local air pollution and public health issue in isolation, but connect it also with the larger global problem of climate change. This convergence that we require today really requires us to grow in a way where growth and pollution can be decoupled from each other, which means even when you are growing, emissions will come down. Now that is possible if we choose our pathways very carefully. So all the sources of pollution that we talk about, so in any given city, when you are motorizing rapidly, the vehicles swamping our roads, or the construction activities happening, with so many people in the city, the amount of waste that we are generating, and the poor people who are still caught in the trap of dirty fuel, the chulha that they're still burning, and the industrial pollution, power plants still running on coal, all that is contributing to the problem. But if you look at India's opportunity today, despite the challenge and the way all these sectoral policies are growing, the policies have actually already adopted the right principles. But we are seeing a big gap between pollution and what is happening on ground. So even though India now has a national clean air program, given a very clear target to the cities that you need to reduce your pollution by at least 40% by 2026, but in reality, and more important, it's very good that we also have dedicated funding for this program, and which is a performance-linked funding, that only if you prove that you have improved the air quality, you can access the fund. But despite all of that, we find that there are a lot of misplaced priority, and our recent analysis shows that the more than 9,000 crore that has already flown for the pollution control purpose has actually gone just for dust control. And therefore, the other bigger problems, the industry, power plant, vehicles, those are neglected. So it's possible if you have the right target, regulatory mandate, tight funding, but the right blueprint for implementation with very strong compliance strategy in your cities.
I mean, that's a point that I was about to raise right now, that you are saying the policies are in place. There's a vision that is in place. There's a blueprint that is in place. But in a country like India, where we are seeing rapid urbanization, not only in metro cities like Delhi NCR or Mumbai for that matter, but even smaller tier 2 cities are wanting to come to the category of tier 1. Implementation becomes a huge challenge. How many resources does a country like India have to keep a tab on whether what is on black and white, what is on policy, what is on paper is actually being implemented on ground zero?
You know, often nowadays, somehow cities, the term city is treated as a bad word. You know, we feel, oh, the cities are bad news because the moment you have very high density population, so many people there, without realizing that cities actually offer you much bigger opportunity if you do it right. For the simple reason, because you're talking about infrastructure today, if you have many people living close to each other in a city, then what you're investing for resource efficiency, for resource sufficiency, conservation, circularity, that means your economic efficiency of that investment goes up manifold, because with that one unit of investment, so many people can benefit, right? So city is actually a good word. If you have more people in cities living in a compact style, compact city form, but where we are going wrong is that the whole ad hocism in the urban planning that we're beginning to see, and our inability to integrate the right criteria of good urban planning, which can actually prevent a lot of these problems. Take a very simple example of motorization. You know, people think that yes, and that's a no-brainer. If you earn more, have more disposable income, you are going to buy more two-wheelers, cars. But people don't understand the way we design our transport infrastructure in a city also decides your commuting choice. So if you are designing the roads for the convenience of the car with wide roads, single lane, only giving the privilege to the car with a flyover, removing people from the road, forcing them to climb a foot over bridge, this means you're increasing the degree of difficulty for people who actually use public transport, want to walk and cycle. So by design, you are forcing people to move to car and two-wheelers, and something that we don't keep in mind. Now understand, in a city like Delhi again, do you realize it's just not about the rising number of vehicles? In this city, today, given our population size and the working population, we generate about 154 million travel trips a day. Now, how are you going to move those travel trips? Today is less than half by public transport, metro and bus. Now, but our master plan says at least 80% of our motorized trip should be driven by public transport. Now, do we even have, again, the blueprint to have that scale of public transport to meet that kind of travel demand, which is only going to increase? And therefore, the irony is, even though you have a metro network, bus numbers have gone up in Delhi. Delhi today boasts about the highest number of electric buses. But the bus ridership has gone down by 48% since 2017. So what does this infrastructure mean? That you are buying more buses, have more infrastructure to run more buses, but you're running empty kilometers. That's where the contradiction is.
I think it's a very catch-22 situation, because as the household income for people is increasing, they want to have a better standard of living. But the concept of minimalistic, which, you know, it's there all over social media, that go minimalistic as far as whether it's furniture in the house or keeping as less vehicles as possible. So that's also catch-22 situation where people want to have a better standard of living by having more assets in terms of, even if it is a depreciating asset like a vehicle, but they also want to live better, look better. But again, it has its consequences. And that's why my next question to you will be, how realistic is it? Because we all are talking about 2047, we are talking about sustainability, we are talking about green buildings, which is something that is being much talked about. Children today are much aware of environment, pollution, how to protect it, more than probably adults and probably people like me, at least. I will not kind of count the experts here. But ma'am, how realistic or how sustainable is this entire idea of kind of putting a balance between urbanization and ensuring that it doesn't have a counter and a massive effect on environment? So keeping a balance between environmental concerns and ensuring that India progresses towards becoming a developed nation, at least that's the target.
So clearly what you require, and I think you made a very interesting point about the standard of living which drives all these choices. But if you look wherever whichever part of the world, we have seen some progress towards sustainability. There people have now accorded a higher priority not to just standard of living, but what we today call the quality of life. And we have to learn to make that distinction, okay? The moment you begin to value quality of life, that am I just falling ill all the time, spending so much money on buying drugs and medicines, right? Losing my productive years, losing my time in congestion, right? So the moment you begin to change that perception of the way you want to live, then you will begin to see the kind of solutions that we are looking for. So with urbanization, what we have to ensure that first, we see a massive energy transition in our cities. So which means that not only our buildings and the way we use our appliances, etc., are lot more fuel efficient, we improve our thermal comfort to reduce the demand for electricity so that our AC requirement is going down, right? All of that. Also the connection with the climate change or the heat wave that we experience. So to build cities more resilient to these climate extremes, okay? So your buildings, the way you live, so that you can improve your thermal livability of that. But along with that, we also then need to look at along with the energy transition, which is about also accessing much cleaner renewable energy in the city, generating your own renewable energy, not only at the rooftop, but also at the public spaces, lot more decentralized approach to community-oriented clean energy transition. But at the same time, a mobility transition. So we now really have to plan for that and build on the baseline of India, where despite this obsession with car, majority in the city, all our cities are still walking, cycling, and using public transport. And yet, the transport sector spending, more than 80% goes for car-centric infrastructure. But if you reverse that, then you will be able to retain the strength that you already have in sustainable mobility. And the third aspect of urbanization that we have to look at is the circularity, which is that the resource that you use. So there's a consumption in the city, which is the scary part, that you and me. So everything that we are consuming, if we are not careful about circularity, that means you are generating an enormous dump of waste. So today the Okla and the Valsava catching fire, the mountain of waste that you create, it should not be there. The moment you begin to realize that no, I will minimize my waste, I will find a way of reusing, processing, recover the material after the waste to reuse it again. And it's interesting to see that it's happening. So it's not just about what can happen, we are beginning to see good practices. So today when the construction boom happening, generating so much of C&D waste, construction and demolition waste, but today you do have the second building of Supreme Court in Delhi using recycled aggregates from the C&D waste. So that circularity will have to come in. So this means that urbanization will have to be defined very differently going forward.
Absolutely. And in fact, ma'am, you have been a champion and a very vocal advocate to right to clean air. In fact, you also spearheaded the right to clean air campaign. And especially in a city like Delhi or Mumbai for that matter, or Bengaluru, where we look the roads being congested, where we are constantly seeing the vehicular movement only increasing. Ma'am, specifically for this campaign that you had spearheaded, how difficult was it to push the campaign forward and to ensure that this becomes a conscious effort of people to take note of? How difficult was it? Or
you know, when I look back today, I think everyone in this city talks about air pollution. Yeah. But imagine when we had begun working on air pollution way back in mid-90s, right? It was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. You know, and the politicians would be so dismissive of it, saying, oh, it's all dust from Rajasthan. You know, that's what it was all about.
Sab theek ho jayega.
Absolutely. only thing that we could do is that we could collect some lung pictures from doctors who showed that how black the lung had turned by breathing that dirty air. And we used that to build communication with people. But the good thing was that because there was the Supreme Court intervention and the very good response from there, now imagine a time then when with so little awareness, so little science in the policy domain, right? We could still see the first big transition in Delhi when we could get rid of the dirty diesel and then the whole CNG transition happened. But it was not easy. And that's what we need to, the big learning here is whatever the solution, CNG then, maybe electrification today, but you need to be ready for the resistance that you are going to get from the system and the industry. And therefore, it is, and you don't deal with that with just a rally and a slogan. You need science on your side. You need good information on your side to be able to navigate all the misinformation that explodes. And that's a big learning today. But today the situations have changed quite a bit because a lot more awareness has built. But I still feel that while we have better awareness regarding the problem of air pollution, but awareness regarding solutions and public support for solution is still very weak.
So it's a journey that we all are walking upon, and hopefully there will be a day where in big cities like in Delhi we can actually breathe clean and fresh air. Thank you very much, Anumita Roy Chaudhary, for joining us. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Can I request Rakesh Kumar, National Sales Director, ABP Network, to please join us on stage?